happy to have you on. So welcome back to LEE-LUH, the podcast. I'm your host, Alexa, and today I am joined by my lovely friend, Becca.
Hello. Hi, I'm Becca.
I'm so excited to have you on the podcast today. And our format is a bit different today because we're recording from different places. So we'll see how this goes. But we're recording in honor of the second anniversary since I launched LEE-LUH, the brand. So this episode is a little homage to that. Back then it was just a blog, and now I also have the podcast and an event, working on building it up to be more and more and continue to grow. And so for people that aren't familiar, LEE-LUH is a word that I made up to describe or put a label on the moments of life that make it feel like, oh my gosh, this is what life is all about. This is what makes life worth living, like getting through the hardship, or everything that's happened so far has led to this moment, which, I'll just read the definition. It's a feeling of wholehearted contentedness upon the recognition that every happenstance in one's life thus far has led to this moment in this place with these people. It contains warmth, safety, love, connection, and genuine happiness in the moment. And before we get too much into the episode, today we're going to be talking about how LEE-LUH has impacted your lives and sharing people's LEE-LUH moments. But first, I want everyone to meet Becca. So Becca, do you want to just say a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, well, first, before that, I just want to say, as your friend, I am so proud of how far you have taken this and how you've started it from an idea and made it into such a thing that now there's, you are doing the podcast, you're hosting events, like you were doing all this stuff that I'm just so proud of you for. Like when we were abroad together, like I remember we'd go on these walks and just talk about some of the stuff that we wanted for ourselves. And I'm just really proud of how this has grown and just become what it has. And yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Thank you so much for saying that. Because it's hard to see that you've come far when it still feels like you're so far from the finish line, or not even that there's a finish line, but just like so far from where I want things to be. And so it's so easy to just get lost in that and feel like, oh, it's not doing enough. Is this worth my time? Whereas then it's really helpful to then hear things from like you when I used to talk to you about things before it even existed. And so thanks. And
no, I mean, you turned that, like you made the actions, you did the work, like you put that in and it shows.
Thank you.
And you should be proud of yourself.
Thank you, Becca. And you've always been just like a wholehearted supporter of mine since we met. And I suppose we should talk about how we met.
Oh boy.
The craziest happenstance, actually, but we met. So I'm from Minnesota. Becca is from, well, are you from Chicago technically?
Yeah. I'm from the suburbs of Chicago, but I live in the city.
Okay. Yeah, and then spring 2020, we both packed our bags and moved to Florence, Italy to, to study for the semester.
What was supposed to be.
Yeah. And we happened to be roommates. And so I remember when I got the email that we got our apartment placement, and the list of names just kept going on and on.
Yep. It kept going. We were like, oh, we're really living with 8 other random girls. Like, all right, let's see how this goes.
I know, so crazy. And, everyone was so different from each other, but I also feel like we just met and it was like instant.
I mean, you and I were instant. Yeah. I was like, this is someone who I'm gonna be stuck to.
Yeah. And every time we talk, it's just like nothing's changed. It always makes me feel so energized after I get to talk to you.
And I feel the exact same.
And I'm so happy that you're a part of this, but I actually want to talk a little bit about you. I feel like you still just ended up bringing it back to me.
Well, yeah, I'm Becca. I live in Chicago. I studied at University of Missouri when I was in school when Alexa and I met. And I'm living in the city with my 2 best friends. And I'm working for Claire's corporate as, I actually just got a new position doing product development. So I'm going to be developing all the earrings that you see in all the Claire stores around the world, and icing. People forget about icing, but that's relevant too. And
People
yeah,
forget.
people forget.
But
It's valid.
now that Becca's designing them, I'll be going.
I'll try and make it cool again, maybe.
But yeah, and I just feel like you always just have stars in your eyes for your dreams. Like you just talk so passionately about the things that you want and the things that you want to do. And I appreciate that about you so much. And that's something that I miss about you too, because I feel like it motivates me. And you also always just have this like hilarious energy. Like it's just your laugh is just contagious, and it's just so delightful to be around you. So I wish that everyone could be friends with you. But now they get to know you a little bit from being on this episode.
Yes, I hope so. I feel like I didn't say that much, but that's the basis about me.
Yeah, that's all right. But I think maybe I just want to kick it off before we get into reading other people's stories. I would love to hear about a Lila moment that you've had, if you can think of a specific one.
Yeah, well, I think I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those kinds of moments in my life, but I feel like one that was really impactful for me was actually when I was with you. When we were studying abroad in Italy, we were supposed to be there for 5 months, and we ended up only getting to stay 5 weeks because unfortunately COVID had other plans. And yeah, life just kind of lifed. And so this vision of, everything that I was working for, that you and I both, because we talked about this, like we didn't have like the family to kind of just like give us that money and send us there. Like this was something that both of us had like worked for, and like it was our goal for years and years and years. Like even when I had my bat mitzvah, my intent of what to do with my money at that point was going towards this. I was in
Which is
seventh grade. This is college.
crazy.
Like,
Which is
yeah,
crazy because you were turning your bat mitzvah was when you turned 13, yeah?
I was literally 12 years old, and I was like, I want to live in Europe. Like, I want to do this. And
And
so
who even knows what study abroad is when you're that age? Or
my
was
aunt my aunt
Oh,
is a counselor. She's a high school counselor. So I was like
okay.
kind of on those things a little bit earlier because she was like,
Mhm.
hey, this is something you could do. And so that was always just like, that was my dream. And, it was in reach. I mean, not even just in reach. It was, there. And then because of COVID, that got taken away. It was really scary. Like there was a lot of unknowns, and we were also in Italy. And that was the point in time where that was where it was really bad. And my friends back home at school, they didn't understand. So it was just like a really weird in between time, and like no one else really understood the way that felt except for you and I and like that little squad that we had there. But like I was
I
what?
just remember us walking on the street during that week, and I remember like I feel like both of us had conversations with our parents where we were like, I'm not coming home. And they're like,
Yep.
it's not an option. We're like, well, I'm going to Spain with Becca.
Yep. I literally said, this is my money. If you want me to come home, you're going to have to come here and drag me by my ears because I am not leaving.
And then the school was like, well, actually, you have nowhere to live. So
Yeah. You
and
have
my
nowhere to
school,
live and
yeah.
no money back. So there you go.
Yeah, no money back either. They're like, and leave the country by the end of the week.
You said,
but I just
okay.
remember you like, we bought these cheap ass umbrellas because of course it was like raining like crazy that week too. Yours just kept breaking, and you just at this
Just kept
point
going up.
you just smashed it on the ground, just so mad. Kind of the opposite of a Lila moment, actually.
That wasn't my finest. That was not my finest. But
we were still just laughing about it, like, and that's what I appreciate too. It's just you're like, it's really good to have people in your life like that you can be like, this shit sucks. That's hilarious.
we were making the best of the worst moments, and
Yeah.
we were emotional messes that we had this dream in our hand, and it literally just evaporated into thin air. But like we still like had fun with it, and at the end of the day, like I remember it was our last night there. We'd gotten some pizza, some wine, and we were sitting on the Ponte Vecchio. right?
No, that's the bridge. Where were we?
Oh.
It's is it Piazzale Michelangelo?
Yes! Are you kidding me?
Why did that just happen to my head? Well, I've been to Florence since, so
I
maybe.
know, but that was so impressive. Okay, well, yeah, that's where we were. And we were all just like really sad, but also like just kind of taking everything in. And we were there like watching the sunset, just kind of like talking about like our favorite moments. I was taking some footage for that like video that I made. And like we were just having these like sad but special moments together. And like I was like, you know, like as angry as I am and like as angry as I like want to be towards this, I was like, you know what, like I had the opportunity to do this in the first place. Like I'm, regardless of what's happening with this, I'm sitting here right now in Italy with these new friends that I just made. And like that wasn't always the easiest. Like, you know, there was, you know, girls could be mean, and there was definitely times where like we were like, oh my god, like kind of like what are we doing? And like we really made the best of it, and we had so much fun. And like and the fact that in that short period of time that like I was able to form like the relationships that I had and the memories that I had and like be able to do all of that, I was like, as angry as I want to be right now, like what is that gonna like do for me? Like I
Right.
was trying to still show gratitude and look at the positives and things, which is really hard. I mean, ever, but especially like in a situation like that when all you want is to just be like,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, you know what? I'm here, and I had great experiences that I've learned from, and this won't be the last time that I hopefully do something like this. So
Yeah. And I feel like we all just ended up kind of pushing some of that stuff to the side in a way that I remember it as a really good night. Like I don't remember it as a sad time, but we just had so much fun. It feels like it lasted forever. Like I feel like we were up there for so long, even though it was maybe an hour or two. But yeah,
oh my
that is
gosh, I
what.
just remembered too that day. Well, this was kind of in my height of anger, actually. When I decided to go to the designer outlet and spend all the money that I wasn't going to be spending on those trips anymore. I spent
Wait,
it
what did
at
you
the,
get? I
oh
forget.
boy, I got Gucci shoes, I got a Prada
Ooh,
wallet, and
woo!
and I got my brother a Gucci wallet because I'm the best sister ever.
Yeah. Does he use it?
He does. He got toothpaste on it, but like aside from that,
Little
I know.
brothers.
I know.
Seriously, I just don't know. Toothpaste on a Gucci wallet, please. But anyway, and did he study abroad too?
Yeah, he did.
And he
He
got to stay there
did.
the whole time.
He got to stay the whole time, but I visited him and it was
Oh
great. I got to do some of my own travel, and yeah, I mean, it was great to be back, but it just kind of like like I feel like afterwards for a while, you know, that kind of died down, life moved on, you graduate, get a job, whatever, but like that kind of going on that trip kind of like refueled that a little bit of me being like, okay, maybe I do need to like figure something out to try and like make something like this happen again for
yeah. Mm-hmm.
myself. But all in all, I'd say that Lila moment was kind of me choosing to be grateful and choosing the positives and the fact that I got that experience over all the anger, which
Yeah.
was still there. And I still let myself feel it at times. But that night, I was like, I'm here right now. I'm looking at this sunset, and like, this is real life. Like, I did this for
Yeah.
myself. Like, regardless of what's happening in the world, like, I made this happen for myself.
Yeah.
And that was cool.
And that's perfect. That's exactly what it is. It's gratitude for how everything's brought you to where you are, but also with recognition of the shitty parts of it. Like some of the stuff that you're like, oh, I didn't understand this at the time, but now it makes sense. And I mean, it doesn't, I feel it a lot when traveling. I think I try to be a lot really intentional with it. And especially before I even had a word for it, like before Lila was a thing that I came up with, it was just something that I recognized was happening. And it wasn't as intentional. Well, like in college, I felt it so much when I loved it when everyone would come in my room and hang out. And I just wanted to make a cozy atmosphere. And I got out like my candy or snacks or whatever. And I loved it when everyone was hanging out in that space. And it just felt like, here I am. And I'm just so happy that these people are in my space and they feel comfortable here and cozy, and like, this is what life's all about. Sometimes it's about being on top of a mountain in Italy watching the sunset, and sometimes it's about being in your bedroom with a couple of your closest friends eating sour gummy worms and just thinking like, this is the life. It can be both. And so it was cool to get a range of answers from people. And so basically how I gathered these LEE-LUH moments was I just asked on Instagram stories, but I will put a link in my highlights. So if people want to share them going forward, definitely do that. If you don't have a LEE-LUH card, I'm happy to send you one. And please always like post a picture, send it, explain the LEE-LUH moment that you had, tag at LEE-LUH by Alexa Joe and hashtag LEE-LUH moment. And I'm really just love to see that and see how it's making an impact for people. So let's just get rolling. So this first one, the person wanted to be kept anonymous, but they said, I was at a patio restaurant with some friends. It was last year during the summer, and we were chatting about current events, and for a moment, I stopped thinking about the relationship problems I was experiencing. I realized that I was safe, and I had a community that supported me. All I really needed to do was trust the process. And with doing that, I started to love the mundane aspects of my life. But I love that one because he said that it was about loving a mundane part of his life and like recognizing that it doesn't have to be about the big things. It can just be about some of the things that are happening all the time. And you're like, oh, wait, actually, I love this.
I think that's almost more important, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, obviously sometimes the big things are the things that stand out in your brain when you're thinking about that. Like, I feel like for me, I was initially thinking what big things like that, but like, I do feel like it's really important to think about those small day-to-day things, because that's where the majority of your life is those everyday moments. It's not always going to be a big thing. Like,
Yeah.
you got to live with yourself every day, and you got to do those everyday things.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to read Cassidy's.
Okay.
To be honest, it was on my wedding day. It was during the last song of our dance, right before our exit, and it was Viva La Vida by Coldplay. Great song.
Great song.
We wanted that song last because it is his best friend's favorite song, and Caleb, my husband, and I were with all of our friends dancing, and bubbles began to appear everywhere, and all of us girls were crying and hugging, and the moment honestly just felt like a movie. I had never had a moment where I felt the Lord's hand and his joy as much as in that moment. Definitely the moment I felt the most overjoyed to be alive. I love that because that makes me think of like those moments that I've had with my friends where like you're just happy to be alive with one another and like looking at your friends like, how did I get this?
And singing together to a good song like that is like top notch. I am so like, this is what life's about. And you know, the bubbles appearing everywhere. I love that one.
I know, that kind of gave me goosebumps when I heard bubbles. I was like, ooh.
Bubbles for my wedding. Check.
That's awesome. And I mean, that's those like core memory songs, like that is just such a core memory song. Like that's one of those songs that regardless of your age, like you hear and there's some sort of memory like connected to it.
Yeah, exactly. So my next one is from Zach. And he said, a lot of travel moments far out in the middle of nowhere where I was like, I can't believe this is happening. And often with his business, and he's the creator of Live a Great Story, who I had on a couple episodes ago. And so his kind of relates around that. But he said, often with business, either trying something that performs really well, and I can trace the success to past experiences, or when he gets a message from someone who's been deeply impacted by Live a Great Story, which I relate to because if anyone says something like, oh, I love the meaning of LEE-LUH, or I love the mission behind the brand, it's like, okay, cool. So it's doing something. It's important that I'm doing that. And he also said, in my current relationship, being able to look back and see how past relationship lessons laid the way with this one, which is so real because when you're going through a breakup, it can feel like, oh my gosh, why is this happening? Like, I thought this person was for me. And then it's not until later in hindsight when things are healed over that you're like, oh, I completely understand why that was necessary. Or even being in a relationship now and being like the other ones weren't a waste of time. It taught me this or that. it's definitely not right anymore. I can learn from what I learned in that time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that's one of those things where it's like everybody has a purpose in your life,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not always like forever, but they definitely serve a purpose, and some good definitely came out of that. I think in those moments, especially when it comes to relationships and friendships or something like that, I think it's important to look at the why so you don't feel like it was for nothing, because it never
Yeah.
is. Okay, so Gina says that I was with some people I just met in El Salvador, and we needed to get over to the next town, which was Surf City. And since their public transport isn't great, we decided to hitchhike. It's something I never thought I'd be able to do, like only something you see in movies. But right away, a truck pulled over and let us hop in the bed, and we were cruising along, and I felt like I was doing something I'd only dreamed of. I was in that moment, and afterwards I was cracking up because of how happy it made me to do something so simple. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to relive that moment. I love that.
I knew
I
you
mean,
would.
yeah, no,
I knew
you
you'd love
know.
that one.
I love it. I'll say that's not always the safest route.
No.
So I want to put that out there that even though I love that it ended up good for her,
Yeah. Look, we're not telling people to go hitchhike in El
I'm not
Salvador.
saying to hitchhike in El Salvador, but I'm saying I'm glad she did and that it was good.
Yeah.
Like,
I would love, if everything was gonna for sure work out great, to be in the back of a pickup truck. Wait, I have been in the back of a pickup truck.
they're kind of fun. When I was in college, I had a few times riding in the back of one of those.
It is fun. Super dangerous. But I love that too, because it's like when you're traveling, you totally understand that you just make decisions that you probably wouldn't make at home.
Yeah. But also, though, like, I feel like it's part of, I don't know, like, it's just part of, like, making those memories, like, for
Hmm.
yourself. Like, something about kind of doing those things that, like, should I really be doing this? But, like,
Hmm.
when it ends up going good, it's great.
Yeah. My next one is from Olivia, and she said, one moment that stands out to me the most was actually when I was at one of my lowest with my mental health. I was counting the days I made it through, and my birthday was coming up. With what I was experiencing in my mind, I didn't think I would be able to make it to my birthday trip, but I made myself go anyway. My best friend planned a camping trip, and I didn't want to let her down. We went for a swim in a lake in the middle of the woods, and it felt like just us and the world. I felt so connected to the earth in that moment. There was an overcast, the water was still, and the trees stood tall around us. Every time I went underwater, all I could picture was me floating in the vast dark water, and I felt free. My mind was quiet, and I felt at peace. After a day of swimming and connecting with the earth, we slept on an old wood dock under the stars and got to see every galaxy, shooting star, etc. I was in awe of how connected I felt and was reassured that I wanted to fight for more of those moments. Moments where I get to experience and connect with the earth and people around me. Just truly experience moments of what it means to be alive and human.
I love that.
That one's so special because that came from another one of those people that just seems like sunshine, and you wouldn't think that they would have been going through something like that. And I just feel her so hard, because the part where she says, like, I was in such a low part in my life, in my mind, that I didn't think I was going to make it to my birthday. Like, I felt that. And then to have something that's just like, oh, I think I want to have more of these moments. Maybe life's okay. Like, maybe it's going to be okay. Maybe there's things that do feel good. That I relate to so much, and I feel seen by her story and really touched by it too, because I'm really happy that she went and she had that moment. And that's completely like the essence of what a Lila moment is. I mean, all of these are, but I feel like I'm just going to say that over and over again.
No, that's awesome. And I like that you pointed out, too, that, like, outwardly she is one of those people that's always like a ray of sunshine
Mm-hmm.
and kind of gives that energy off because, you know, like, everyone's a human being. People have their issues regardless of what you see on the outside. Like, I know that that's something, like, I've had my struggles, but, like, it's something that other people would never
Right.
really know because I put that out. Like, I put that out there because I didn't want people to know that. So I think it's great that she, like, came forward and said that. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I just think that's it's important to remember that
Yeah.
people you can't always tell what's going on.
Exactly.
Ooh, Michaela said it was a late night and her and a few friends had rented a car in South Africa and they drove from their apartment to a hostel in the mountains. At some point, right as we were about to arrive at the hostel, one of us realized we could see the Milky Way. That's awesome. All of us who weren't driving stuck our head and entire bodies basically out of the car and stared up at the Milky Way as we drove through the mountains.
Oh my
A
God.
Lumineers song was playing.
Shut up. Okay, where are the cameras? That's a movie.
Okay, well, a Lumineers song was playing. A good movie moment. All of us were giggling while we stuck our heads out of the car. The Milky Way was so beautiful. I was surrounded by some of the closest friends I have. I remember thinking that night felt like magic. I love that. It's the moment. It's the company.
It's the Lumineers. It's the Milky Way.
In South Africa.
Yes.
Going to, like, that's LEE-LUH. It's giving LEE-LUH.
It's giving LEE-LUH.
It's giving LEE-LUH.
Yeah, that one's perfect. This one's a little shorty. I have a couple little shorties. This one's from Donna, and she said, I've had a few of these moments. One most recently was the other night at a concert. I was with my 3 best gal friends, and I was just waiting for the artist to come on, and I remember feeling my mouth hurt, and I realized I was just smiling so big. And then I thought, I'm so happy to be here in this moment. I feel so special and honored to have this experience. That, like, makes my cheeks hurt from smiling from reading it. Because I just, like, I know that feeling. Especially at a concert, you go to so many concerts and festivals and shows and everything. Like, that's your wheelhouse.
That's literally, festivals are my Super Bowl.
No, and it's actually crazy when you think about it, how all those amazing artists are all in the same place at once.
Oh my God. Honestly, this just made me think of another LEE-LUH moment that I had last summer. I was at a music festival in Chicago, and Grizz was playing his remix of John Summit's Where You Are. And that's like mine and my friends' song. And and it was one of Grizz's last shows before he like went on this like, few year break of making music. And so that was the last time he was going to be in Chicago for don't know how long. We were just taking it in, just like looking at the lights, listening to the music. I was hugging my best friend. Like, we were just it was just pure euphoria is the best word to like explain it. And like, I was literally just like, wow, like this is life. Like, I'm getting to experience this moment with one of my favorite artists, one of my favorite songs, with some of my best friends. Like, can life get more magical than this? It hasn't since. I'm just kidding.
And that was
it. That was it.
But that's actually so real. Every time I feel like I've felt it at EDM shows a lot. Oh, this is what life is about. It's just so energizing. And so that one I love. I mean, when you realize your cheeks hurt.
It's the best hurt. It's the best hurt.
It's the best hurt. That and your abs.
This next one is on that same wavelength. Aaron was at Electric Forest with their best friends, listening to my favorite artist and seeing the lights. I was thinking nothing else matters in this moment, and to soak it in.
So true.
That is one of those things, like, literally nothing else matters.
Yeah.
Just learning to be present. And that's something I definitely like struggle with sometimes too, because sometimes I'll be like at something and I'm like, find myself like recording so much that I like miss the whole song because I was focusing on recording it.
I appreciated that part of it. That line where she said, all that matters is just being here, or whatever it was.
Yeah, she said, nothing else matters in this moment, and soak it in. And that's something I think we need to remind ourselves a little more.
Yeah. And I love this next one because it's from Tay. And she said that it was actually just this past weekend when she was in Maui doing the road to Hana and looking at the waterfalls and sights. And it was the coolest thing she's ever seen or done. And it was with 2 girls she had met 2 months ago at a work stay who quickly became some of her best friends. She was so grateful to be alive and be able to do cool things like that. And the reason this one's super cool to me is because she had actually reached out to me and asked me about the work stay that I did in Hawaii because she really wanted to go to Hawaii. And so I said, my hosts don't do it anymore, but what kind of experience are you looking for? Because I can definitely get you in touch with some people. Like, I know people on the island in all different kinds of work stays. And so I connected her with this girl that I was friends with, and they spoke. And I said, yeah, I actually think you would really like this work stay at this one place. And she legitimate, I didn't hear from either of them again. And that story she sent in is because she legitimately went and is doing that work stay now.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I'm happy for her, and I'm also happy for me because I recommended that and sorted all that out for, well, not sorted out for her.
I mean, you planted that.
Like, if I hadn't gone to Hawaii, she probably wouldn't be there at that place. Maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, definitely not at that place that you said. Like, maybe she would have been somewhere else, but like, very unlikely that was you.
It's just the butterfly effect, baby. It's the Lila.
The Lila. This is from Sophie. Just recently, I was in the Blue Mountains west of Sydney, Australia, doing a hike with my boyfriend, and the whole time I was literally just awestruck. First of all, the hike was just fun, and we're hiking through the beautiful fern forest, rainforest vibes. Ooh, rainforest.
Ooh.
And we get to this creek, and the trail goes through the creek, so we take our shoes off. I put on my water sandals, and we hiked through the super clear, ice-cold water. And then we got to the super beautiful cave with the waterfall/swimming hole, where the light was coming in perfectly. It was just an amazing hike, mind-blowing. Weather was perfect. I was in awe. We were canyoning, and also it was so wonderful because we had been working the last 5 months, 6 to 7 days a week, and now we're on the road just exploring and hiking.
And
That's awesome.
I know she's doing a working holiday visa in Australia right now with her boyfriend. So they were just working super hard for a few months, and now they're just traveling about.
That is so cool. That is so cool. I look up to that so much.
Ooh, this next one is... Oh, I feel like they're all... I'm like, ooh, I love this one. But this next one is from Addie, and we were neighbors as children, and I'll explain why after. This is so special. But she said, I was riding the subway the other day and crossing over the river where you can see the whole skyline of Manhattan. She lives in New York. And I just realized I did it. I made my little 8-year-old self's dream come true, and I lived in New York City. Not even just lived here, but I really made a life for myself. I found my future husband and some of the best friends I've ever known. I had a job in the fashion industry for a prestigious jewelry brand and actually thrived here. And I just felt so happy for 8-year-old me. Like, I just know she wouldn't believe me if I told her this is how her life ended up turning out. And it's like crazy insane because, so Addie is so cool. We grew up together. Like, we both, after my parents divorced, we moved into these townhomes, and then she was on the same block of homes as us. And so we became friends. And I remember we used to play this little fashion video game, like the kind of like how Pac-Man plugs into the TV. It was like that. And you would design new fashion outfits and all this stuff. And we would play that in her room for hours and talk about our dream outfit, which of course now looking back, it's actually atrocious what that was. It was splatter paint shirt, flip flops.
Oh my God. Definitely some layering with the shirts, probably 3 tank tops.
You know there was 3 a tank top under that tee. Oh yeah. But anyway, and so then even throughout high school, she was like, yeah, I'm going to work really hard and I'm going to save up. And, she didn't have, as far as I know, she didn't really have the financial support. She really had to make that for herself. And living in New York is not cheap. And she went to, I don't know exactly what school, but she went to a fashion school in New York. And so I'm just so proud of her and watching that happen. And so for that, I'm so happy she had a moment like that. Cause I'm just I want to cry because I remember when we were that young and playing this little fashion game and you're like, I want to move to New York. And here you are being on your way to your fashion job and just thinking, well, I don't know if that's what she's doing, but she's in New York and she's like, oh, I did it. I made it. It's just crazy.
I love that. And I also love how she talked about how, I love how she was kind of talking about herself in the third person as a younger version of herself, because I think that that's something that we should all do a little more as women, that we need to, kind of talk to yourself as if you are that younger girl, or remember that there's still that little girl in everyone. Because I feel I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel even I sometimes I'm I feel I'm still a kid. I feel I'm some of this adult stuff that happens, I'm I'm just a kid. I shouldn't have to do this. And that, that's probably how everyone feels. And I think
we
it
both
just kind
turned 25 this month. Excuse me. I'm literally 9 years old. What are you talking about?
No,
I'm 16.
I'm literally not even supposed to drive yet.
No, I have my permit.
I've never touched alcohol because it's illegal because I'm not 21.
Did that ever keep you from touching alcohol?
I don't know. Is there a cop here? I don't know. But all in all, I just really like how she was talking about herself in that way, about like the younger version of her, because she's still there in all of us. And like, I think that also gives such like a wow, like I did this.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
perspective to things.
And have you seen those prompts where people are like, you know, when you're talking to yourself, like you're talking to her, or like, what would you say to little her? And I'm like, oh my God, if I was looking at little 3-4-year-old me, if I was looking at 9, like even older than that, you know, I would just look at her with all the love and compassion in my heart and be like, you only know what you know right now. Like it's okay. But yet I can't give that same compassion to myself at this age.
Yep.
And so it's just really interesting to try and work on that and be like, if I'm looking at a past version of myself and thinking, oh my gosh, like she's so precious, like I just want to protect her heart, then why am I not thinking of that as my current self from an older perspective and be like, you know, a few years down the line, I might look at myself back when I was 24 and think, please, like, be kinder to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, Paige. Oh my gosh, Paige sounds cool. It was when I had moved to Spain and I was swimming in the ocean at sunset with a bunch of people I'd met in class earlier that day. Could not believe that I was really there and that was my life. Short and sweet and simple, but that's awesome. That is so awesome. Like just people she had just met in class. I mean, she made that leap and moved to Spain. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. I think she was, she might have been studying abroad. Like,
with us?
No.
Oh.
We weren't in Spain.
No, I thought you meant maybe she did like a 2.0.
Oh, no. But yeah, I mean, still cool. Like it doesn't discount anything, but I think that's why she moved there. But yeah, exactly. Some of it's not about telling a big story. Sometimes it's just the short, simple, sweet. That's exactly what it is. Can't believe this is my life. But my next one is a story. This is somebody that I met when I was backpacking the first time, and I met her in Greece on a Greek island. So she's talking about a time when she was in the Greek islands. But Simone says, on a boat in Zakynthos, I was there for 3 months in summer 2021, living with other people doing the same thing who were the most amazing people ever. We went out on a boat trip, snorkeled in the bluest waters, saw loads of turtles and fish, blasting music through a speaker and drinking the shittiest vodka from the supermarket, with the most gorgeous sunset filling the sky. And we all just looked at each other and we all felt the same exact way in that moment. Wow, I freaking love my life. It was a massive appreciation of how lucky we were to be doing what we were doing, living our best lives in a beautiful country in the sun with amazing people without another care in the world. Those are the moments we live for. Being on a boat in Greece, drinking shitty vodka and thinking, what else matters?
You know what? You could always, I mean, this might be like a not mature way to look at things, but you can always make more money.
Yeah.
I mean, all we're doing for the rest of our lives is working. You're always going to be able to make more money. You're never going to be able to.
You're so right.
Like redo those like memories, especially when we're like this young and like able to do these things. Like when else are we going to have like the freedom in terms of like day-to-day? I mean, to a point, you know, like having a 9-to-5 job doesn't give you that much freedom, but I mean, like at least like looking at, for me, like I'm single, I don't have any pets, I don't have any children, like I just live with my roommates. Like now's the time in our life where we can do these things and have these moments. I mean, not that you can't do it always, but
yeah.
All right, this next one is from Isabel. So she was actually one of our roommates in Florence when we were studying abroad.
Yeah, that's why I wanted you to read this one. We love Isabel. Isabel's
we love
so
her.
Cool.
We just love her so much. She's just
fashion icon, hilarious. Isabel, this is a shout out to you.
You're just a perfect human.
She's just cool. She's just like, if I thought of her in one word, I'd be like, yeah, Isabel's cool.
She's cool.
Yeah.
She's cool. It's every moment in a flow. So like yoga, if I'm synced in with my mind to my movements. If I'm doing something creative and I'm experiencing the flow with it. but I would say yoga is the most frequent because I practice that the most. And with practice allows me to sink into that mindfulness quicker. That's such an Isabel answer.
But it's true. Like,
It is.
that was the only one that I felt like was submitted that was something done in ritual, I guess. Something that's a practice. Like, I guess Lila isn't the practice, but something that she feels continuously, that she's like, oh, I'm specifically doing this because this is what's making me feel that flow. And flow is so important, and it's so easy to put on the back burner, but it's like doing something just for the sake of it and getting lost in it.
Yeah. And I think especially like how she talked about like practicing that mindfulness and like mind body like connection. Those are things that, you know, I didn't even think about something like that. Like when I first read your Instagram story and decided to like reply my Lila moment, like I didn't even think about how something like that is. But I love that Isabel said that because, I mean, like we said earlier, like I think it's important to have that with those everyday moments because, you know, you're going to be doing yoga more often than you're going to be jumping in
the water off
water
a
in
boat in
Spain.
Greece,
Yeah.
or Spain,
Like,
or wherever everybody else was. It's super cool.
yeah, like I think it's good to kind of like ground yourself and like take you back to those like everyday things.
Yeah. My next one is from Jared, and he said, these moments definitely included travel and the people I love or come to love when I meet them along the way. I like that part. A lot of the times it's while enjoying nature, usually a good hike, almost something you kind of had to work towards to get to the spot. That seclusion away from the everyday hustle bustle of real life creates opportunity for conversations, a whole different level with whoever you're with. True. And the picture I envision in my mind for moments like these are usually the ones where you had to be there to see it, which makes it that much more special to be in the moment with the people you're enjoying it with. Hiking in the mountains of New Mexico, I think it's like Highway 119 or something. I'm reading this word for word, by the way. Along the Grand Tetons. In my buddy's makeover travel van at the top of the mountain in Switzerland, bioluminescent algae running down your sailing gear after getting splashed with a warm wave in the middle of the sailing race to Bermuda. Wow. So see it now.
So descriptive.
So descriptive. I love it. This bioluminescent algae. And then you think about everything that had to happen along the way to get you to that exact moment, and how different it would be if everything went right, or one thing changed along the way, and just how different that moment would be if it even would have ever been had things not played out the way they did. I like your prompt, man. Lots of the best memories coming back to mind. That one is super cool because it gave me a little reality check too, because when he said, it made you think about the times that you're like, oh, well, if everything had gone right, then I wouldn't be here. Like, it didn't all need to go right. Maybe it was all for the right thing. And I think I can get super in my head when it feels like things aren't going my way or the way I want them to be, or like things aren't getting traction, or I'm not progressing as fast as I want to be, or this isn't happening, or that's not happening. And just sitting back and being like, okay, well, maybe I don't know everything going right. Maybe I don't know exactly what that means. And I just have this idea of it. So I have to just like lean back and trust the process, that maybe someday I'll be covered in bioluminescent algae running down my swim gear while I watch some sailing race to Bermuda. Maybe that's what's waiting for me.
You never know, but I do think that it's important to remember that, because I feel like you kind of said something about that earlier, that like, you know, without the like journey of getting to things, like things wouldn't be the way that they are.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Hamza said, I went to Mecca for the first time in December. It was a surreal experience. I was religious when I was younger, but was so detached from religion. When I was in Mecca, I realized I had to go through all that to get where I am. It was a surreal experience. I love that.
I thought that was super cool because while I am not religious, I think it's really cool to see people come back to this sense of meaning. And, you know, he said, you know, I was religious when younger and then kind of fell out from it. And then this was like a life-giving moment that made it kind of click and feel like, oh, this gives me meaning. I don't really necessarily care what people have for religion. Like, it doesn't really matter what it is. It's just the fact that something's clicking for them. That's like, oh, this is what I find meaning in. This is something that makes sense to me. Like, this is purpose in life. This is something to pray to ask for things from, to ask for help in times of need and strength. And whatever that religion is, that's a really cool moment for that person that they came back to it.
Totally. And that's something I feel like I relate to a little bit with like my like Judaism. Like I feel like growing up, it was always one of those things that like I had to go to Hebrew school. I had to like have a bat mitzvah to the point where like I was kind of like, all right, like I don't really want anything to like do with that, just because like, you know, as a kid, your things are forced on you and you're like, no, I don't want to do that. And then like when I went to Israel for my birthright trip, that was like kind of a moment for me where I was like, okay, like even if I'm not like religious in this, like I could still like I kind of figured out what like my Jewishness like meant to me, and that like I was kind of able to come back to it a little bit and also like not be as embarrassed about it. And so just hearing her say that, I'm like, I understand that to a point. So I love that.
My friend Rachel said, and Rachel is like so inspirational. She's one of those people that's just so positive when the worst things happen. But she said, I was in the ocean after work surfing with some friends, watching the sunset, thinking about how my 14-year-old self that always dreamed of having a life by the ocean, learning to surf and sharing it with the people I love. And I met her in Hawaii, and her dream was to live in Hawaii on the North Shore of Oahu. And like there was a lot of trials and tribulations, but she was doing it. And that's so special to me when I see those stories of people like we were talking about earlier with Addie. Like, oh, this is something that I thought, oh, someday I want to do this, but you don't think it can actually happen. Like, you don't think it's actually in reach. You know, oh, I'm from Minnesota. I won't move to New York City. I won't move to Hawaii and live on the North Shore and go surfing with my friends after work. But then you become an adult and you're like, oh, wait, it wasn't just a dream. Like, I could do it. And I love that part. I'm going to share this last one that she said that she's had so many of those small moments that just make me smile and give me goosebumps. Just singing along to a good song with friends, watching the sunrise or sunset in a new place, swimming in the ocean, connecting to random people on the other side of the world. LIS-LIG. Life is short, life is good. And yeah.
Snaps to you, sis.
What more is there to say? Life is short, life is good. So that one, shout out to Minka. You know her, you love her. She's been on the podcast before. And we've got one more to wrap it up, and I'm going to give that one to you, Becca.
All right. So this one is from Hannah. She said, being in church, making art, working on volunteer projects recently, and meeting new people with family, friends, new volunteers, thinking like, whoa, this is a movement, lighthearted, serenity, calmness. LEE-LUH is truly a movement. Thank you.
I'm glad that one's the one that we ended on.
Yeah, I like that.
That's what I want it to be. I think that LEE-LUH is a movement. It's about recognizing these moments. And there was a mix of things. You don't just have to be on the other side of the world on top of a mountain. You don't have to just be in your living room with your friends, but it can be both. It can be the everyday things and it can be the big things, but it's all about what makes life worth living. What does that mean to you? And not what it means to somebody else, but what does it mean to you? And so to say that it's a movement, it warms my heart. And I hope that that's something that can continue to be spread and felt and grow. And that's my dream for it. So this was just, I feel like this was the perfect way to just kind of celebrate the anniversary. I can't believe it's been 2 years. In some ways, I thought I would be a lot further along by now. And in other ways, I have to just recognize that it's like I've gotten a lot of shit done in the last 2 years. I've done a lot of things. I've been all around.
I've done a lot.
And so
you've also lived your life. Like,
yeah, I have a life to live. And we just shared 20 stories from people. And it's like, oh, damn, like maybe that is making a difference to somebody. Maybe that's doing something for someone. So this has been really, really good for me. And I hope that it's even better for other people. And I hope it's been good for you too, Becca.
It has been. I mean, I think it's important to like kind of force yourself to think about these things, because I think a lot of times, you know, life just kind of moves by and you don't really like you don't really like sit and let those things settle and really appreciate them for what they are. So I think I like how you even just said, like, you know, like, what's your Lila moment? Like, I was sitting there reflecting on it and like thinking about other little things. Like, I think it's just like a good thing to remind yourself to like just think about when you're on your own reflecting.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the episode today, Becca. I hope we can have you on time and time again. And it was super fun to have you be a part of this because you've always been such a supporter. And yeah, thank you so much for listening if you've made it this far and for being a part of the Lila, the movement. And yeah, of course, please share, rate, comment, subscribe, do your thing. Really helps me out, helps spread this message, and helps other people recognize more of those moments that make life feel like it's worth living. And that's what we got.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome. Give my
You're
girl
all
some
good.
love.